Hello everybody, Volen here in pursuit of art. I wanted to make a quick video for you guys today to talk about some things that I don't think are really covered anywhere else, or at least nowhere that I've seen so far. I want to talk to you about a few sort of dangers about watching tutorials, about just doing course after course and just absorbing a lot of information. I think this is kind of becoming a pattern for most people, at least the people that I've worked with so far one-on-one. I see this over and over where people have a lot more understanding of what's going on, but they have a lot less technical skill or just ability to apply what it is that they know. So they'll be able to talk about a lot of the things that go about in art, they'll be able to explain a lot of it, they'll be able to see a lot of it, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to use it. And what I want to talk to you about is pretty much that problem. How to not be deceived by what you've just seen. What I mean by that is that a lot of times when you watch a tutorial, you sort of walk away with the kind of false idea that you've gotten everything that there is to be gotten from the video. And I think that's a big problem right there. It's because we're never really taught anywhere how to actually learn a practical skill. We're taught for like 12, 15 years in school, we're taught, maybe longer if you failed a couple grades, we are taught to just absorb information, memorize information, and return it back to the person that's given it to us. And I think a lot of the videos, and there's no real way around that, to be honest, a lot of the videos would just present very simplistic information. And the thing is that with art, there really isn't too much that you actually need to know. I pretty much think that within about a month, if you have the right resources, you could gather all the information. So you could have everything that there is to know about art in about a month. You could get it, you could read it, but you won't have learned how to actually use it. It's a different thing. The difference between practice and theory lies within the ability to understand relationships of all those different things that you gather. Also, it relies on the fact that practice itself happens in your brain. So anytime that you're doing anything, you're forming networks in your brain, you're forming new connections, and those networks get strengthened with use. So that means that the more that you practice something, the more that you dwell on a single item and you do it over and over, you think about it, you reflect on it, etc. You build the network of this thing, and it expands and it wires onto other networks. So what you're doing is you're building a physical piece in your brain. I think that's incredibly important. You're building the structure in your brain. Without that structure, theory does absolutely nothing for you. Theory is like having a new, let's say, potential network in there, but it's just like the blueprint of it. It's just like an architect's plan of what this thing is supposed to look like. So you put this thing in your brain, but it's there in a very sort of faint, it's like a sketch. So very outlined, nothing concrete, unspecific, just it's pure potential. Anytime that you get theory from anything, you're receiving potential. So like this could be something that you could do also. This could be something that you could improve your work with. But practice, it's what's gonna build that actual structure in there. So I want you, when you're watching something, when you think, I've already seen that, I already know that, this is too simple, I've heard this 1,000 times. And again, information isn't really what art is about. There just isn't that much information to be said about it. You just have to understand surfaces, how they work, and let's say the geometry of things, how to work on a two-dimensional plane and mimic 3D. That's pretty much it. Once you can render and just think about geometry, you're pretty much done with the actual just visual representation part. What you do with your ideas, etc., that's a completely separate point. But I think most of us are at those beginning stages. Most of us that watch these videos, most of us that are struggling with this stuff, we're kind of sort of stuck on the first step. We're still trying to build that technical skill. There's going to be a lot of videos, a lot of courses that are going to go over that same material. And if you're stuck at a certain point, it's really not that new piece of content that's going to help you. Unless maybe it's something like this that's actually talking about the meta learning, about how to learn about your learning, how to learn about your brain, all of that stuff. So I want to make a couple points about how to actually sometimes even watch tutorials or watch demos that you've already seen, how to sort of see them in a new way. When you're learning a practical skill, since we already talked about how a practical skill is just basically a series of networks in your brain, it really isn't about just understanding what the people are saying. So for me, a big thing has actually been to, as disrespectful as it sounds, to shut the speaker up. So whoever it is that's talking, I'll mute them and I'll just watch what they actually do. And then sometimes I'll speed it up. So I love doing, this is probably one of my favorite ones. I do this all the time. So I would watch, let's say, Fangzhu videos, turn off the sound so I can't hear what he's saying, and then speed it up, and then think about what's he actually doing at every particular time, and what's the use of that, what brush is he using, when's it a soft edge, when's it a hard edge, how's he thinking about his surfaces, what is he defining first, big shape, small shape, detail, what is he doing at this very moment? Because the thing is, and the point that I want to make is, be aware of what's not said, be aware of what's not being said. Okay? A lot of times people will talk about what's in their own head at that very moment. So as people improve, they'll kind of forget what the things are that they struggle with the most. I know that over the years when I first started wanting to make those videos, I had in my mind, let's say, a million different things that I wanted to make a video about. Like, oh, this was so important, this was so hard to get, this was so important, I want to share it. And then let's say a couple months after, I won't even remember. Or that'll be something that's so mundane now that I don't even think about it. Like, that's gotten to the point where it's now networked, it's in the brain, it's there, it's wired. I can't even see how I could have ever not had that thing. So be aware of when you're watching something that the person that's speaking, they're actually talking about either what they're seeing at the moment, what they're struggling with, what their thought process is like. So again, using Fengzhu as an example, because I love all this stuff, I'm not going to say a single bad thing about it, but let's say in his videos, he might talk a lot about technically what he's using. And technically not meaning art technically, but just let's say computer specs, what memory he has, how many CPUs, stuff like that. To me, that was never, I could see so many things that are so much more important to me rather than that. Like the computer part makes 0% difference to me. If you have a laptop that's bought in the last couple of years or even in the last 5 years or more, you're probably good to go. Like Photoshop's gonna run, you can do anything that you need to do. So he would talk about things that to him might be important, because to him having a computer that, as he says, doesn't slow down when he's doing stuff is probably very important. And to other professionals that may, let's say, be wondering what hardware to get, that would be pretty good. But for me, that wouldn't really make any difference to my work. I don't really need a better computer. I've tried that. It didn't make me any better. I've tried a better tablet, tried a better computer, etc. That didn't really improve me any. So be aware of what's being unsaid. So while just basically be aware that there's more in the actual demo. Be aware that there's more in the content, apart from what's just being said. Don't be limited to what's being told to you. So just because a tutorial is focused on this or that aspect, that doesn't mean that that's all that's there. Again, if art is all relationship, then you're actually getting 100 other things for free. If it's a tutorial on brushes or on landscapes or how to do this and that, if it's just landscape, let's say, if it's about composition, you most likely will also be able to learn about atmospheric perspective. You'll also probably be able to learn about the person's brush strokes. What tools are they using? What brushes are they using? Hard edge, soft edge, big shape, small shape, etc. Those things are all there, but they're unsaid. So I recommend I go over stuff all the time. Just be aware that what you have is probably a lot more than what you're aware of. So just try and find, and don't use just what I give you. Come up with your own ways to just squeeze out more of what you're seeing. Second one, you have to practice it without actually doing the thing that you see. I do this all the time. It's because I want to go through as many possible courses as I can in the least amount of time possible. So I'd want to sign up for 5 or 10 different things, watch them all in a month or in a week, and then feel like, okay, I've seen all these new things, I'm probably awesome. Most often though, I find that whenever I get to that, so I've seen, let's say, the 5 or 10, a month later I decide to just try something. If I even remember it, I decide to try it out, I do it, and I see that I'm stuck at the most simple level. Just step one, I'm stuck at step one. What I have to do then is rewatch everything and go step by step and just spend the time that's necessary. There's no way that if you're just hearing someone say something to you, even this video right now, Like, you might think that there's something that you could use from it. You might think that something's going to give you a good idea of how you can change your own process. If you don't actually practice it and do it consistently, so let's say from this, what can you do? Play a demo, turn it off, get a notepad, start writing down what you see. Think about what's not being said. Do that every day. Do that with all the things that you've already seen. Try and watch things that you've already seen in a different way, just apart from just muting them. What else could you get from them? Could you maybe play them in reverse? Could you pause them? Could you just jump from minute to minute, or just go like beginning, middle, end, and just see what patterns and whatever it is that you can come up with, whatever you can come up with. That's what I'm interested, not in me sort of just making people that can do the same things that I do, is like just giving you ideas of what can you come up with. Then you can tell me, and then we both get to exchange and get better. If you only just listen to the theory though, if you never actually do the thing, then remember, this thing is just a blueprint in your brain, and the brain does nothing better than to prune stuff that is unused. So you might watch something, it'll stay there for a day or two, then it will be gone, and you won't even remember that it was ever there. So every single piece of information you get is potential. You do have to practice it though, to solidify it. That goes for actual drawing, that goes for knowledge, that goes for anything. Any new thing that you see, even if you think it's simplistic, even if you play a demo that you think is way too easy for you, just try it. And you might be surprised, especially if you're still learning. If you're still learning, then you need to try everything out. Everything that you think you've mastered, test it and actually see if you have. Then you can move on. And then a final one, the simpler it is, the harder it is. This pretty much ties into the last one, to the one before. When someone's really good at something, they make it seem like it's simple. I'm always surprised at how when I try the most basic thing, like the simplest thing that I can see, anytime I watch a video, and it just, okay, I don't even, like, that's too simple to try. That I understand it, that's basic stuff, yeah, I get the idea, I get the gist of it, whatever. I'm cool, I'm just gonna move on and do something else. The simpler an idea is, and again, you can get all this info, all the art info ever, you can get it within a month, but you can't learn it within that time. You can ingest it all in a month, you can read all the books, let's say, just read them. But having read them doesn't mean you've learned it. You need to practice this thing over and over. And your brain also forms connections, not just, it doesn't happen like that. It's the way muscles grow. If you've ever been to the gym and trained for a long period of time, you'll know that sometimes you gain grams per week or per month. So you gain grams. To gain like a whole kilo or a couple of kilos of muscle, let's say, if you're trying to get big, that would take years, okay? That it takes years. So for any biological growth, takes time. Think of how long it took you from when you're a kid to grow up. Like, that takes years. You're growing over a 10, 15 year period. So you're still growing. Your brain is still growing, it's changing. It does take time though. So for your brain to consolidate something, that takes time. The simpler the thing is, the more likely it is that what you're seeing is someone that's condensed a complex technique to something that now seems very simple because they've practiced it so much. Chances are when you try it, when you're just trying it on your own, and when you're trying it in isolation. So a pro might do something that's connected to 5 or 10 other things. They might be doing rendering, designing, lighting, mood. They might be doing all that on the fly because they've done it so much. But if you just try one, you might find that it doesn't really work. So don't try, my advice is don't try and just go for the highest level thing that you can possibly reach just because the information is available to you, just because there are tutorials and pros teaching. Don't try for, if you're struggling with just producing a basic form, just rendering something out, just making something look like a thing, like how I talk about in so many videos. If you struggle with making something look like a thing, then don't go for design yet. Don't feel like a failure because you can't produce a great character, because you're not, or don't reach for the higher level stuff if you're still on the more basic things. What I mean by that is that if you're just rendering something, don't really think about the story yet. If you're just struggling to make something, to make an object, to just render out the anatomy, whatever it may be, don't be worried that you didn't make an awesome costume for it, or that you aren't really sure what world to make for the thing. It's not really about design yet. Like, those things will come, but kind of be aware of the level that you're on at the moment. Because if you can focus on those things that you need to clear out of the way to be able to go to the top, to be able to go to those higher levels, you'll progress faster instead of feeling bad about two things. One, that your rendering didn't work out, and that you couldn't really tell a great story through it. You can't tell your story if you don't have the words for it yet. If you're working on the basics, don't feel bad that you're not great at the advanced stuff. That wouldn't make sense. How could you be an amazing designer without being able to make a cube, let's say, yet? It just doesn't work that way. It works step by step, and everything gets unlocked for you the more steps you take. Okay, that's kind of it. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about tutorials, things to be aware of when you're watching them, how to try out different things, to not just be limited to what the person is presenting to you, but to also be aware that there's so much more going on underneath what can be seen. So use your creativity, not just to make pictures, but also about how you learn. The better you learn, the faster you learn, the faster you get to where you want to go to. The more you listen to other people and only take in what they're giving you, the more limited you are, because that's what everyone else is going to get. So try and find new ways as best you can to take in that content. Try and find creative ways to get more from what you get. And then share it with me so I can get better too. Alright, you guys, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you around soon. If this helped you, please let me know what you got from this. So give me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking about so I can make better videos for you, so I can understand your problems better and I can help you better. Because I know, and I'm not just thinking out of my head about what you may be struggling with, I actually know what I can do for you. So please let me know, give me a like, please subscribe, share it anywhere that you think it may be useful, and keep going. There's no other way. Thank you very much.